everyone, it's the Loomy Loon here, and welcome to a progress vlog I'm going to be doing of my Raccoon cosplay. So the first thing I have here just kind of to show is my reference that I have. I found as much reference as I could from the movies, from fan art, from figurines, from other cosplayers. The steps that I've done are 1. Patterning, as you can see from this photo here. I did my whole patterning process. I had newspaper, I laid it out using reference images that I had, and it's mostly just straight lines, so it's pretty easy. Just measuring, taking measurements. I'd done a few sketches in half scale before, and then I adapted them using my dress form as a reference. I made my pattern. Once I had it patterned, I began to cut it out. These are some pieces I have not sanded because I'm not going to be sanding these ones yet. For this shape here, I'm going to be adding a second layer of foam, so I'm going to wait to contact cement them together before I sand them. You can see in this photo what all the armor looked like before I started to sand. So you can see this is what the edges look like unsanded, and this is what some of the sanded edges look like. You can see that's much cleaner, and then there's a little bit of fuzziness still to it. This one in particular, what I did, it was using this little doodad right here, using an 80 grit and then a 120 or 150 grit. I sanded them down and it did a pretty good job. Then using sandpaper and 150 grit and a little block like this, I just went in with my hand and cleaned it up. Everyone, it's a few days later, so let's see where we're at. Still foam. So I don't have any contact cement, so I can't do any of the gluing out, which is kind of frustrating. But I've actually done a lot of changes. You can see from the past photo of what it looked like last time to now. I've made a few changes, and I'm going to go over what those are. Because, you know, I keep on doing research because I want to make sure the costume is as accurate as possible. And I noticed small things. For example, if I might have based some things off of someone else's cosplay perhaps, or like fan art, and then I realized looking at figurines or the movie photos that it wasn't accurate. So let's go over some of the changes I made. A first big one is this piece here, the one in red. It was very uneven. I checked my pattern, and the pattern itself was made unevenly, so I had to cut some whole new pieces for that. Going to the shoulder pieces, I now have this little cutout. The cutout, there's a piece there that'll connect to the back. It goes in there. There's going to be this little tube that runs down it. I also adjusted the shape of the shoulder piece. There's more of a diagonal angle now. It's a bit more rounded. It just looks a little bit more accurate to the movie photos. On this one, I changed these pieces. Another thing I changed is I cut out a few extra pieces. You see there, I now have 2 layers of this. This is where we are currently at with the armor. What I last did is I heat treated everything. So I took my heat gun, hit everything with that. I then started to use adhesive to put them together. First, I used LePage contact cement as an experiment. There's these pieces here that are 2 pieces. You see those ones there. I tried to just put those together and it did not work. It was a big failure. The only pieces the contact cement worked for were these ones right here. Worked perfectly on those ones. My guesses are either that I was too impatient and I didn't wait long enough, which honestly sounds like me, or I just, it was because there was a rigid piece of the textured side next to a smooth side. Anyway, that didn't work, so then I went and I got a Super M3 Super 77 spray adhesive, and it worked perfectly. I sanded down the pieces there and then I glued them together, and it was good. It was especially good for the sandwiching pieces. For areas like the shoulders here, areas where it's going to carry a lot of tension, also the hip pads where it connects there, I used a mixture of hot glue and E6000. At E6000 I filled in all the gaps with hot glue, and then I did an extra layer of hot glue on the back, and then an extra coat of E6000 on top of that. So that is how all the adhesive is going. I also have been taking all of my quick seal, to fill in gaps and holes and mistakes, and as you can see, there's a lot of mistakes. Basically, anywhere I'm just filling things in, filling in the blanks, filling in the gaps and holes and nicks, because battle damage happens. I've also been using my brand new tool. Roy Woolley recommended in the panel that in place of a Dremel, you can use a pet nail sander. Obviously, it isn't as powerful and the bits aren't as good as a regular Dremel. It goes reverse, and it's been a pretty good alternative. Obviously, a real Dremel will be better, And it doesn't do the best job at sanding, but it's been really useful for getting in like corners like that, small details. I started working on the head. Ooh, ooh. So what I'm doing with the head is I'm creating a clay base. I'm going to wrap that in tape and saran wrap once it's dry, and I'm going to cover it with Worbla. That is how I'm going to be doing the head. This nose is just a stand-in because I bought a silicone nose on Etsy. I'm going to be using Worbla. I bought some hinges that I'm going to be using to hinge the mouth, and I also bought resin eyes. This is a very rough version of it. I'm going to have to improve the sculpt a lot, but this is sort of my rough first run through of the sculpting. The head is where we have made some progress. As you can see, I've added some foam because I wasn't quite happy with the shape. Once I got it finished, I felt that it needed to be a bit more raccoonish, which meant that slope, and it meant the cheeks. Part of the effect of like the big puffy triangle cheeks is going to be done with the fur, but just to give it a little boost, I added the foam there. Inside, I added the straps there with D-rings and Worbla, and I also added just hot glued in some EVA foam pieces because I felt the mask was sliding back too much and it needed those there just to keep it in place. I've also got some foam ears glued on. Underneath, we've got the jaw. The lips are epoxy sculpt, and this is craft foam with more Sculpey that's painted. I used Mod Podge to make it a bit shiny, and the teeth are sculpted with translucent oven baked clay. Bottom jaw is the same deal. I had to re-sculpt the bottom jaw once because I found that the bottom jaw was not closing properly, and I wanted on the top you to be able to see the teeth. I thought it was more important to see the top teeth than the bottom teeth, so I ended up re-sculpting the bottom jaw. And that's about it for our progress now. I'm going to be beginning sculpting and then casting the tongue today. Here's the head. A lot has been done since I last showed it. Starting with the obvious eyes. These are two 35mm resin eyes. I bought one on Etsy and I didn't realize that it was a single eye. I thought it was a set, and so it arrived on my door from Helsinki, and it was great, perfect, they're just the right size, only one. Luckily, my Zoroark head, which I made back in 2015, had resin eyes, so I managed to take one from that and put it in there. Sadly, it was a little bit yellow and aged. However, with the painting, which is just acrylic paint, you can't really see it at all. Once those were painted, I glued a piece of felt to the back to then glue that to the head. To get the perfect way to get the resin eyes to stay in the head, I had to kind of cut the Worbla a little bit more, which was hard because I already had foam on there, and obviously to heat up Worbla, you need to use a heat gun, and heat gun with foam, with this kind of foam, does not work. The eyelids are epoxy sculpt, the mesh there is this plastic mesh, so that's that. All the foam shapes are just foam. We saw some of those before. This silicone nose needs to be delinted because I've been shaving a lot of fur, so it's all linted. But this is just from a Etsy seller based in Ontario. It was an overstock item, and luckily they had the perfect sized raccoon nose, so I'm very, very lucky to have gotten that. The hinges are from a seller in America somewhere, I can't remember where, and just elastic there. Unfortunately, I could not figure out for the life of me how to get the hinging of the jaw to work so that when I lower my jaw, the jaw of the mask lowers. It might be a mix between the hinges I got obviously were for their pre-made masks of their brand of products, and I bought them from what I made. It really probably was just a flaw in design from the very beginning. A lot of things went wrong to get to this point. Anyway, the hinges now just, they keep the jaw closed most of the time. Not right now because I'm holding the camera. But they also allow me to open the jaw. Or sometimes they just make it look like you have a big old overbite. But let's dive into the mouth. This is kind of hard because I'm holding a camera, but it's just craft foam, and you've got some acrylic paint, Sculpey, translucent Sculpey, and then the nice old latex tongue made in the same method of the hands. I will link the tutorial that I used. I also have, you'll see in the back there, turning him around. This is a piece of Worbla covered in black lycra. There's two reasons for this. One, it actually covers the back of the mouth, so when the mouth is open, you don't see my face, you see this. This is also where my jaw sits. You also see I've got some of the fur on the ear there because I have begun furring the mask. The first step to furring is what you see here is called doing a duct tape pattern. Basically, I wrap the entire thing in saran wrap, and then I wrap it with duct tape. I mark my fur direction lines, saying which direction the fur has to go in. I then mark seam lines, and I have little hash marks so I know where they line up. You cut it out, you turn them around, cut them out on the fur using snips, just like this. And then the way that I prefer to sew them together is just to use blanket stitches, and so it's also in my hand, and I prefer to use Coban, which is buttonhole thread. It's a lot thicker. That with a blanket stitch is very durable for fursuit parts. This is the face here. I won't put it on at the moment. It's all been shaved a little bit. This is the face for blanket stitches. Blanket stitches everywhere. All hand sewn, all cut out by hand. Farm to table, razor to face. So that is the face fur. The reason that the face is in white, and this is the bottom jaw, is because I have to airbrush on all the markings, the mask, the sort of gradations of the muzzle, and there's also always usually a white streak on the raccoon face, which is sort of around the eyebrows, around the edge of where the mask is. I thought it would be easier to do the face in white and then airbrush all those markings than it would be to have to get different colors of fur and then sew them all in one place. Although using this blanket stitch method, it does hide the seams very well. You can't see all the seams that are in there, and there are a few, so the blanket stitch method is hiding the seams quite well. But I thought it would be a lot easier just to airbrush the same kind of fur. So that's how you obviously see that this is a raccoon, but it doesn't have that dark mask yet. Here are the feet sees. There's the bottom of the feet. This is what it looks like, just black leather. It is faux leather with a piece of batting. I then stitched on those designs. One of them I glued on, and then the other I hand sewed on until I wanted it to look better, and shaved a little bit of the bottom of the foot. The foot has been shaved, the claws are Sculpey that has been painted, and the foot is just fake fur on top of a shoe with just foam. It's a very standard fursuit foot paw, and I put a little bit of lining in there just for comfort. Here's the rest of the body fur. So we got little leggings here, little sensible leggings. I'm going to be putting an elastic around the knee because right now these go from my ankles to a bit past my knee. I'm either putting an elastic or putting some snaps that will attach to the rest of the outfit just to make sure that they stay up. Now we've got our sensible fur crop top. Using my basic block pattern and a sleeve pattern that I drafted, I just cut out the shape of my upper body and turned it into a little top. The reason that it's only going to about my waist is because I thought it would be pointless to have a full bodysuit of fur when only the upper body is showing. But that's also why I decided to do it like a crop top instead of just sleeves, because when I lift my arm, I don't want it to be skin seeing. And the big bell of the ball is a big poofy tail. I asked you guys on Instagram what kind of tail you preferred. A big floofy tail or a more skinny tail, which is realistic to the Rocket in the movies. But in a lot of reference art and other artwork, he has a very big poofy tail, and I was partial to the poofy tail, and you guys were too, so I did it poofy. You might have noticed all of this fur is very gray. Well, this is actually a really realistic color of fur towards actual raccoons. Rocket himself is more of a browny gray. So I bought an airbrush gun. I have an air compressor from my dad. Once I get the pepper attachments, I'm going to be airbrushing all of this fur. So the top, the legs, the feet, the head, once that's done, all that's going to be airbrushed brown. You wanted raccoon hands. So this is one of the two hand paws. This is basically how it worked. I had these white gloves. I originally tried doing it out of fur. It looked too bulky, and it was just ugly, and I did not like it. So these are just a pair of white gloves that I painted the black and brown on. I'm going to be doing some more airbrushing work, and the claws are Sculpey attached with E6000. The cool part is the latex paw pad. This was done in a similar method to the tongue. I will not be making a tutorial for the tongue or for the paw pad because I used another person's tutorial, which I will be linking in the description. Basically, I sculpted a left and right paw pad, casted it in plaster of Paris. The cast, here's a photo of it, and then I just casted them in black latex that I colored with acrylic paint, and then attached them using E6000 to the glove. They do limit the motion of my hand just a tiny bit, but I don't think it's a huge deal because I can still hold stuff in a fairly raccoon-like way. I am very happy with the hand paws, the way they turned out. And Got them both over here. About fur painting. Excuse me. So as you can see, all the fur is now brown and Rocket now has a beautiful raccoon face. This was achieved mostly through airbrushing. I bought an airbrush on Amazon, just a $30 one, and it worked fairly well most of the time. Because of the heat, it got clogged a lot just because of how hot and humid it was, so it did require a lot of unclogging. The feet I actually painted using dry brushing, and it worked. It just required a lot of brushing out the fur. I also painted once the tail was brown, I painted the black rings on it, similarly to how I painted the black mask inside of the ears and all the little bits on Rocket's face. Here is the armor sitting here where it's been resting. In this hiatus, it hasn't really gone through much structural changes other than shortening. I've added the plastic bits there, ordered them on Amazon, they arrived pretty shortly, and these bits. I forgot to put these before doing the plastidip, which I did 3 layers of. I'm going to get another can so I can do another few layers, because there's still some imperfections showing through that I'm not happy with. But I couldn't put these on until after because I needed to wait for these tubes to arrive to really get the measurement of where I was going to put that. The tubes are attached with E6000. I used pins to put them in place while I did the glue. This is the dome. It was a plastic ornament that I bought on eBay for about $5. It arrived faster than I hoped it would. On the inside, I went through with sandpaper and smoothed everything out, and then I used this paint, this Tamiya acrylic paint. The reason I used it is because it is blue, transparent, and because I had it. I used sandpaper just to kind of give it a little bit of grip, and then the paint. I had to sort of pour the paint in and then roll it around because the brush strokes were too evident. These are the LEDs. It is powered with a 9-volt tactile switch, 2 blue LEDs. Shines through pretty nice. On my iPhone camera, it appears as a very purpley blue, but in person, it is a very nice deep blue. And there's going to be attached in there. There's a little hole there. It's a bit hard to see because of how dark it is, but that is where it's going to be attached. So that is where the armor is at. Painting. Let's talk a little bit about painting of the armor. Once it was all plastidip, it was all primed, I just went in with acrylics. So in the movie, it seems to be a little bit, seems to be the color palette in the movie, however, it is a lot more desaturated. I saw a lot of great reference art of it this saturated with this bright copper, this bright silver, and I decided I liked that better than just painting it kind of lighter black. I also decided to do a lot of weathering on it. There were a few imperfections in some of the plastidip, and I thought I could really play on those and add more texture and add more weathering to sort of go with the theme of the kind of unevenness in some of it. So I have some rust and some weathering all along there. These little pins are literally just like tacks that I put in there. I'm very proud of how the leather came out. It was just brown acrylic sponged on with a piece of upholstery foam on top of black plastic. I also have that going through all these pieces here. I'm very proud of how that effect came out. All of the leather pieces, I sewed the straps. They're currently all just hanging onto there with hot glue. I will be replacing it with E6000 when I get more E6000. Alright, since I finished here my completed outfit, I'm now going to go into some of the details of how the costume part, the actual outfit part, was made. This jumpsuit is something that I drafted completely from scratch based on my own measurements. I have taken this past year clothing drafting classes, so a lot of the information that I learned I can't really go over because these are things I was taught in school over a whole year of learning. These aren't really things I can teach in a YouTube video. There are lots of resources and books out there for pattern drafting, and those are what I use to learn, so you can learn too to find those resources. Basically, using my measurements, I'd already created some basic blocks of a sort of basic block of my top and a basic pant block. Basically, I had to take those two, here's a photo of what they look like. I had to take those two things, slap them together, and use that to make a bodysuit. I made 3 versions of my mock-up. You can see 2 of them here. And the reason I had to do 3, the first one, when I was drafting my pattern, I made the mistake of putting them together, connecting the hip line of the top to the hip line of the pants. That was a big mistake because basically 9 inches of material were missing, so as you could probably guess, it was way too short and did not fit me. I then had to start over completely with the pattern and created one where I connected the waistline to waistline to waistline. This time it fit very well, only issue is I should have added a few inches of ease at the waistline so that it accommodate, you know, like your whole body. It's really, just have something that tight all the way around your trunk is really uncomfortable. So my third one, I added a little bit of ease. The other thing I added with my third one is I added a lot of style lines. As you can see here, there's all these little extra pieces that I added for style. So they're kind of quilted together. I also added the leg insert there that's made of leather. All those lines, they look together on the final project. My patterns are separated into two different bags. So the front is obviously the most complicated part because I have all those style lines, all those parts I need to connect. It has the leg insert. It also has those things that go down the front where the buckles and the vest is connected to. The back is a bit less complicated, but I kept them separate just for ease. Let's go into the mock-ups. So this was version 2. Version 1 I'm not including because it didn't fit all together, but I had to learn a lot from that mock-up. Mock-ups are basically taking your pattern and then taking a kind of cheap fabric that you don't really need and making a version of it to try it out. Usually mock-ups are really important with patterns that you draft yourself because you have to see if they fit. Mock-up number 2 was pretty good. You can see that the neckline there, I have it clipped. You can see all the seam allowances and notches marked. One thing I also did with mock-up 2 is you can see there, I ripped open the leg seam and then drew out the pattern that I wanted for the leather insert in the leg. I patterned that out and then I ripped it open so I could trace it directly onto the pattern. It's a very common technique in pattern drafting is taking your mock-up, drawing directly on it what you want to change. So adjusting your neckline, adjusting your armhole, drawing a style line, drawing a pattern, then ripping it, pinning it to your pattern, and tracing it directly out. So that is with that. Now we're going to go into mock-up number 3, which is only the pants. You can see with this one I had my finished pattern, what is now my finished pattern, and I just went in because I needed to practice those style lines. I needed to see how they would work, what it would be like, and it's a very good thing that I did because I learned, especially with these leg inserts, how to make sure they lay flat. Because it's really hard to insert a square piece of fabric into a different square piece of fabric. It's not as easy as you might think it is, so it was really good to get that practice. You can also see here that the leg insert piece is missing. That is because somewhere along the line I lost the front leather leg insert pattern piece. I lost this piece right here. I couldn't find the pattern. So I ripped out the front piece of the bodysuit to use that as a pattern piece. Only I goofed up and accidentally ripped out the back. So I then had to rip out the front one and then make it, so I actually wasted a little bit of leather fabric because I had accidentally ripped out the wrong piece and I had cut out 4 back pieces as opposed to 2 front pieces and 2 back pieces. You can also see the top is missing because I used the top piece to draft the vest. Basically what I did is at where I wanted the vest to end, so it's about a little bit past my waistline, closer to my hip line, I cut the top of my drafted block. I put it on my dress form, which is padded out with my basic block, so it's my size and shape. I then traced what I wanted it to look like. So I traced where it would go, I traced the neckline, I traced the arm lines, and then I just cut that right out, and that became my pattern. It was really simple. I also traced out, I then went and I traced all the facings for the neck and arms, because all of these have facings on them. What a facing is basically if you take your pattern piece and then draw along it, and you can sew that there and flip it over. It's a way of hemming and finishing an edge without adding like a rolled hem where it's typical to put one. So all of these edges here are faced, the armhole is faced, the neck is faced. That all is using facings, and the bottom is just hemmed. These holes here, I'll flip it over so you can see better. These little hole inserts, these little keyholes, those are also faced, and these were actually quite tricky to do. There was a lot of having to sort of force it and get them to sit nicely. So this was just drafted directly from the mock-up, from my bodysuit, that directly turned into the vest. What I did for these straps, I put the vest onto the dress form with that. I measured where I wanted the straps to go, and then I just sewed some leather straps. I sewed them directly on there, they're just attached to the facing. I sewed just a right line along the stitching of the facing, and I sewed each of them to a plastic buckle. So, just unbuckle like that, and that is how they connect through here. They go through these little slots. They're sewed down, but they each have an opening in there, and they're just sewed directly, I clip them directly on there, and that's how they attach. It's actually really easy, it's really quick. These little metal pieces, I just made a little quick pattern piece, and then I cut 6 of each out of craft foam, and then I attached them all to black Worbla. I used black Worbla this time because I could paint directly over it. I didn't want to have to waste time with priming with gesso. I wanted to be able to just go right in, so I used black Worbla. These ones you can see they have an extra little piece there. The other ones are just the same piece. And I just went those over and over. On the front, I have this little collar piece. It didn't take very long to draft at all. There's a collar piece attached. You can see on this side it's not attached yet. The reason of that is because I have a zipper in the back. So if the collar was attached, I wouldn't be able to get my body into the costume. So I'm most likely going to use Velcro or snaps to keep it down, and the collar will just be tucked in like that. I wanted the collar has to go underneath the jumpsuit, and because I put my zipper in the back, I can't have it just all the way around. Under these things, we also have more buckles. That's because these buckles attach to the armor like so. So these little armor things attach directly onto there, and that's how the back armor will be fastened. This back armor will also be fastened to that vest. This little thing here and in here, this is where there's a little front piece that is going to attach into there. Then we got all the spots for the buckles, all of our style lines, our front leather inserts. You can't really see, but they have a few lines stitched down them just for some nice detail. I'm also going to be attaching snaps to the legs that are going to help the fur of the legs attach. So that is a quick rundown of everything that went into the clothing for Rocket Raccoon. It feels so weird to say, but I think Rocket is done now. In retrospect, there was a lot of things I loved about the costume. There's things I could have done differently, but I did my best and I'm really proud of how it came out. In retrospect, it probably would have been smarter to buy the fur the right color. It would have been more money, but it would have saved me about 40 hours of my time. Breaking down the project, this is the time spent on all of the different aspects of the project. And you know that cosplay feeling when you're like, oh, the costume is done. No, it's not really ever done, is it? Tacking down all the facings, putting a snap here or there, adding some elastic, using E6000 instead of hot glue to fix some things, but there's nothing more I have to make or attach, so in my mind the costume is done. Here is a short video of the time lapse of me putting on the costume so you can see the process of getting it on.
Can you look at me and do some expressions? Does the mouth move at all? Can I get real in and see like your eye grids? Can you give me an oh yeah?
Yeah, baby.
That's the end of my rocket progress vlog. There's never something I thought I'd never say. That it's done. I finished this project. It is by far the most difficult project I have ever undertaken. More difficult than Nightcrawler, more difficult than really anything else I've ever made. I am so proud of how it came out. Thank you for watching. If you like my other work, here it is. You can support me on various social media, and see you all at HalCon.
Yeah, baby.
None of that.